non-performing assets, and so on. Earlier he served as a Indian Council for Cultural Relations chair professor on Indian economy under the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, at Hankook University of Foreign Rights Studies, Seoul in South Korea during 2011 and 12. He received Sir Ratan Tata Trust Research Fellowship to undertaking collaborative research with Watershed Institute, University of Wisconsin, USA. He served as the expert committee member of the government of Karnataka for preparing the identify compelling reasons which resulted in a favorable Supreme Court verdict. Currently, he is a consultant national economist for Asian Development Bank, Philippines, to undertake the research on river basin planning in Karnataka. Currently, he is a vice chairman, dean of academics program committee at ISEC. He is also member of several expert committees, which include National Green Tribunals and Government of India. He is he has been invited as a keynote speaker to more than 10 conferences, invited as an expert panelist for about 10 panel discussions, and delivered about the 100 invited lecture. Dr. Krishna Raj and research work has been featured in the national and international print and electronic media. He is also invited as a expert writer in the Tribunal newspaper, the New Delhi, and contemporary issues faced by India, and he is regularly writes in a Deccan Herald and other newspaper, and also in online blogs. He is an editorial board on few journals that BOS members for few universities. He has currently undertaken 11 ongoing research projects with policy relevance. Completed 11 research projects, published 5 books, 29 research paper, 5 book reviews, 9 working paper, 35 popular articles, newspaper, also policy paper. He served as a panel expert in television's program on contemporary economics and environmental issues in Doordarshan, All India radios, and many private TV channels. He was an invited as an expert to documentary film on climate change, that is a Red Hot Nation, produced by the Dark Horse Pictures, Mumbai. He was successfully guided and supervised thesis of 9 PhD scholars and who work on diverse and contemporary research topic, and currently 8 students are registered under him for PhD, and he is teaching macroeconomics and the PhD student at ISEC. And thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Roshan, for the introduction of our today's guest. Now, may I please request our guest speaker, Professor Dr. Krishna Raj, to please enlighten us on the topic Krishnaraja Wadiyar IV of Mysore Princely State, an architect of social and economic development of Downtrodden. Please, Professor Krishna Raj, sir.
Thank you, Pavan. Good evening, one and all. Respected Professor, Professor Sukhadeo Thorat, who is also chairing this webinar on very interesting topic, anti-caste movement in India. So it is according to me, it is a wonderful program to enlighten the scholars and also the general public about the anti-caste movement that took place throughout the country, state after state, inviting the experts and providing an opportunity to learn and also interact on this anti-caste movement. It was a wonderful platform. I am really happy to participate in this program. Thank you very much, sir, for giving me this opportunity. And my co-presenter, Dr. Shashikant Patan, had given an excellent lecture on Basavanna's contribution in anti-caste movement in Karnataka. I was really impressed by his lecture. So my area of presentation is today on the contribution of Nalbadi Krishnaraja Wadiyar, or is also popularly known as Krishnaraja Wadiyar IV, is an architect of social and economic empowerment of downtrodden in the princely state of Mysore, Mysore state. It was earlier Mysore state. Later, it was renamed as Karnataka state now. So just allow me to share the PPT so that I'll 1 minute.
Sir, you can share the PPT, sir.
Yes, I'm trying to share it. Can you see the PPT?
Yes, sir, it's visible, sir.
Yes. So when Professor Sukhadeo Thorat has asked me to speak on this very important topic, I was really reluctant, and also at the same time, I wanted to pursue research on this topic because we would like to know the contributions made by the Krishnaraja Wadiyar IV of Mysore Princely State towards the upliftment of the downtrodden. So I started exploring, even though I wanted to write a book on this great king, but I could not find time to go through his contributions. But Professor Sukhadeo Thorat has ignited interest in this topic. So I have started reading about Krishnaraja Wadiyar. I would like to make a brief presentation at this hour because I have not gone through properly, because you know that this especially during the princely state, the literature available is only a few literature. So I sourced 3 important literature to present my lecture, provide my discussion. The one literature I followed is that Census of India way back in during the British government, that is 1911. And another important work I followed is that Mysore Gazetteer compiled for government, volume 3 on economic issues. And one more is that Mysore and modern industries. But I have extracted the information only on the social and economic upliftment of downtrodden. I will be making presentation only on those aspects. So a little bit, I want to give an introduction about the princely state of Mysore, the Kingdom of Mysore. The Kingdom of Mysore was historically recorded between 1399 to 1947 until the India achieved its independence. So this Kingdom of Mysore was ruled by the many Wadiyar family, which was feudatory of the Vijayanagara Empire. Earlier, which was under the control of Vijayanagara Kingdom, you know, that very famous kingdom in India. Various kings of Vijayanagara, including Krishna Devaraya, they ruled the various parts of India. So this Mysore kingdom claimed independence after decline of Vijayanagara Empire way back in 1565. So during 18th century, the kingdom became independent before occupation of the British after the Fourth Anglo-Mysore War, where Tipu Sultan was defeated by the British. So the British, they restored the kingdom to the Wadiyars because they are very much submissive to the kingdom of, British kingdom. So therefore, they have given an independent kingdom with certain rules and restrictions. So the British restored the kingdom to the Wadiyars, and Mysore has become princely state until India's independence. Uh, Later, the kingdom was merged with the Union of India and became a Mysore state. So this map clearly gives you an idea where the geographical area in which the Mysore princely state was ruling. So it is basically it is in the Karnataka state, and surrounded by various other princely kingdoms. So the portrait is the Maharaja Krishnaraja Wadiyar IV. He is also popularly known as Nalvadi Krishnaraja Wadiyar. So the King Krishnaraja Wadiyar IV is popularly known as Nalvadi Krishnaraja Wadiyar. Nalvadi means the fourth. He was born on June 4th, 1884 in the Mysore Palace. Krishnaraja Wadiyar was the first son of Maharaja Chamarajendra Wadiyar, 10th, and Maharani Vani Vilas Sannidhana. So he was the 24th king of Mysore Kingdom from 1894 until his death in 1940. So he ruled the kingdom Kingdom of Mysore for 46 years. If Karnataka is seen today as one of the progressive state in education and economic development, the much of the credit goes to Krishnaraja Wadiyar IV. So he laid a strong foundation for the modern development of the erstwhile Mysore state. And even today, the industries, the infrastructure, the dams, the electricity, the educational institutions, the all-over development which took place during his regime for nearly 46 years. So what was his early life and education? Why he contributed in such a way for the overall economic development of India? The King Krishnaraja Wadiyar received education from the British. So this is the hallmark of his contribution to economic development, because he had a modern and Western education that had helped him to understand the economic needs of the all the downtrodden, and even the modern economic development which was taking place in Europe and America. So he imbibed all those modern thoughts to make economic development in the state of Karnataka, especially in the princely state. So he was the student of Western studies, Kannada, Sanskrit, and classical music. He undergone administrative training under Sir Stuart Fraser of the Bombay Civil Service. There is a Fraser town in Bangalore in his honor. And on the June 6th, 1900, he got married to Maharani Pratapa Kumari Ammani of Katiwar. As Professor Sukhadeo Thorat mentioned, these backward caste kings, they had a relationship with the other princely states like Gujarat, even in Madhya Pradesh, and also in Rajasthan. So he was declared the king of Mysore at the age of 11 after the untimely death of his father, Chamraja Wadiyar X. He was declared as the king at the teenage of 11 years. But his mother, Maharani Vani Vilasa, ruled as the regent until he took over the reins administration on August 8, 1902 at the age of 18. So his kingdom and also his rule or his administration was considered even today in Karnataka, even in India, as the golden era of economic development. So his period was known as the golden era of development in Mysore state. During his rule, the state was famously called modern Mysore. Even today, you can see in Mysore city, the roads and roads are very wide, and the infrastructure he has created that has earned the famous Even the World War, Mysore is famous even today for its magnificent roads and structures and the cleanliness even today we have. So during the Maharaja's rule, Diwans like Sarem Visvesvaraya, Mirza Ismail, who rendered invaluable service to the development and prosperity of the state. Maharaja had innumerable contributions to society, from introducing local self-governing institutions and people's representative councils to generating electricity and establishing modern industries and educational institutions. So his contributions to the economic development of state is innumerable, from electricity to infrastructure to industrial development, education development, and also self-governance and educations to downtrodden. So therefore, Mahatma Gandhi, learning about the king's excellent qualities, generosity, patronage to art, literature, and culture, and constructive activities, he bestowed upon him the title Rajarshi, means saintly king. So he also visited the Mysore and praised the work of the Maharaja. So what were the, just I am focusing on the topic itself, what was the contribution of Nalwadi Krishnaraja Wadiyar towards the upliftment of the downtrodden? So Maharaja Nalwadi Krishnaraja Wadiyar was an architect of social justice and empowerment. He was the first to criminalize untouchability during the princely state, even much before the constitution, and this was his contribution. So he banned child marriage for girls under the age of 18 years. He also established a number of scholarships for widowed girls. He donated rupees 60 lakh that time each year for spastic children. Those children were mentally retarded or mentally affected. So in 1915, the Mysore Social Progress Association was formed to empower the weaker sections of the Mysore society. And he implemented a reservation policy as an act of social justice, even though there was much opposition from top men in the administration, including the Brahmin Diwans or prime ministers, including Sir M. Visvesvaraya, who was Diwan at the time of this king. This was due to the political situation in Mysore at that time, an anti-caste movement led by the backward communities under the banner of Praja Mitra Mandali launched a focused movement to bring pressure on the king of Mysore for reservation in recruitment. So as a result, yes. So as a result of this movement, the Maharaja declared that, replying to Prajamitra Mandali on 24 June 1918, the Maharaja Nalwadi Krishnaraja Wadiyar spoke that it is my earnest desire to see all classes of my subjects represented in just proportion in public services. At the same time, I must tell you that it is far from my desire that any community should in any way be penalized on account of its caste, simply because it has worked hard and utilized fully the opportunities for advancement which are open to all my subjects. Among my loyal subjects include the Brahmins, nor can I for a moment forget the eminent services rendered in the past and are still being rendered to my house and state by the representatives of this gifted community. So this was the opinion, this was the respect he had towards the downtrodden, even the Panchamas. So yeah, yes, in this course of action to uplift this socially disadvantaged society, Later, Nalvadi Krishnaraja Wadiyar constituted a committee headed by Sir Leslie Miller, Chief Judge of the Chief Court of Mysore, on August 3rd, 1918, to provide caste-based reservation in jobs and education for the first time in the country. So this committee is popularly known as Miller Committee Report 1919. So adequate representation of communities in public service. So this move perhaps is regarded as the first ever effort by undivided India to provide reservation on a caste basis in government services. So the committee defined the backward communities as all communities other than Brahmins who are not now adequately represented in the public service. So the Europeans and Anglo-Indians who have English as their mother tongue will of course be excluded from this backward class according to this committee's definition of backward communities. So it means that other than Brahmins, all are considered as backward communities, including SCs and STs. So the finding of this committee provided a fact-based report on the actual situation of Brahmin over-representation in government positions and education, as well as the under-representation of other communities. So the study was based on the data from the 1911 census about demographics by caste and English literacy. So scholarship for underprivileged groups, a lowering of the age requirement for public service positions, and a change in the merit-based exams were among its proposals by this committee. So the Miller report provided the groundwork for equal representation of all Mysore residents in government positions and the educational system. So one of the key texts Dr. B.R. Ambedkar referred to while formulating the policies for proportionate representation of the depressed classes at the national level is this study, which served as the model for late policies. So even before the Miller Committee report, there were many reservations and policies introduced in the state for including backward classes in the education system, of which some are stated below. In 1913, a regulation introducing compulsory primary education was passed by the government. In 1915, with the intention that no student should be refused entrance to government schools or schools maintained with public funds on the basis of caste, the government passed an order requesting the headmasters of public schools to admit Dalit pupils. As a result, members of upper castes, particularly Muslims, withdrew their kids from the schools that had accepted Dalit students. The government, however, remained steadfast in its intention and in its governmental order. In 1924, the Chamarajendra Sanskrit College in Bangalore was opened to students of all communities, including SC/ST. So along with making primary education mandatory, the contribution towards upliftment of the downtrodden that continues. So along with making primary education mandatory, the government also established scholarships for backward class kids to pursue higher education. Fees were abolished up to the middle school level. The opening of technical, medical, and engineering institutes promoted the education of women, even women. With 8,000 schools and 5,15,000 students, the total education spending, which was 6,99,000 in 1902, it was increased to 46,80,000 in 1927. This clearly shows that how much importance the king had given to the education of the students, especially the depressed class. Later, all schools were made accessible to Panchamas, and additional facilities like writing materials were provided to them. The Orthodox organizations objected to this and requested that the ruling be revoked. But the Maharaja showed statesmanship by adopting a strong stance and claiming that they were also his subjects, silencing the Orthodox organizations' criticism. Also, the Maharaja established the Muslim Education Advisory Committee to promote education among Muslims. So in the Mysore Representative Assembly, there were 20 Muslim members, while 10% of the members of the Mysore Legislative Council were Muslims. So in this regard, he accepted Justice Miller's committee recommendations in 1999 that certain steps should be taken to see that within 7 years, half of the higher appointments, administrative and ministerial, and 2/3 of the subordinate appointments he held by those other than non-Brahmins. So he had given even a reservation in appointment, in recruitment. As a result, the representation by these backward communities has increased over a period of time. Earlier, only the Brahmins and Muslims domination were there in the higher positions, even civil services. So the key recommendations made by the committee, Justice Miller's committee, was as follows. Within a period of not more than 7 years, not less than 1.5 of the higher and 2/3 of the lower appointments in each grade of the service, and so far as possible in each office, are to be held by members of communities other than Brahmin community. Preference being given to the duly qualified candidates of the depressed classes who are available. So after accepting the Miller Committee report, the government of Mysore established the Central Recruitment Board in May 1921, and by government decree reserved 75% of the positions for the members of the backward classes. So this is an historical decision taken by the Maharaja, the Nalwadi Krishnaraja Wadiyar, after the accepting the Miller's Committee report. The government edict and this study clarify the actual situation of India's underprivileged groups and the power of their numbers. So even he has given the representation of various socio-economic group in the various services. So after a number of measures taken by the government, the representation of backward classes in government services increased from 30% in 1921 to 42% in 1926. So Mirza Ismail, he was the Diwan of under this king, followed a conciliatory policy, and the government ordered to give 3 out of 4 to backward class candidates in departments where representation had not reached the stipulated 50%, and to give 2 out of 3 in the departments where 50% had not reached. So this is the one table the Miller Committee has used. The appointment in the Amaldari service according to the caste in 1925 to 1929. If you look at the caste, Brahmins, Lingais, Bedar, Jain, Okaliga, Aras, Kunchikitigar, Okaligar, Christian, Mohammedan, and others, Adi Karnataka, Weavers, Vaishya, and etc. Only the Brahmins, their representation was very high. Look at these Brahmins in 1925, their representation in these services was 9, and it has increased to 13, 18, and later it has been reduced over a period of time, but still their representation in this total period was 35, whereas Lingait's representation was 4, Bedar was 2, and other communities 1 or 2, and only the Muslims had highest 9 after the Brahmins, and the Adi Karnataka, the SCs, they were only 1. So out of 66 positions, the Brahmins occupied 35, the Muslims occupied 9, and Lingaites occupied 4, and the remaining caste occupied very less, 1 or 2 positions. So later in 1928 and in consecutive years during the meeting of the Representative Assembly, statistics were provided regarding the recruitment, and they were not satisfying because many backward class leaders felt the recommendations was not implemented seriously or vigorously. So the table I have shown in 6 from the book, The Political Economy of Indirect Rule, Mysore 1881 to 1947, shows the appointment in the Amildari service according to caste from the year 1925 to 1929. So Brahmins were still prominent in the appointment made, but it should be pointed out that for the years 1925 to 26 and 1926 to 27, 3 and 6 Brahmin respectively were promoted from deputy Amaldari to Amaldari. So if we take this into account, 26 of 66 appointment were Brahmins, which is less than 50%. Among other castes, Muslims, Lingais, and Christians were the least unsuccessful, whereas Vokkaligas had strong reason to be dissatisfied. So this table, as I have shown, shows that it is a natural and slow process to alter the communal balance as the dominant position was held by the Brahmins. The relative absence of Vokkaligas among the fresh recruits was also a matter of debate in 1928, as they were dominant because of their population. So the member of the Executive Council answered Vokkaligas by saying that they had selected the best candidate from non-Brahmin communities. So later in the gazetted officers distributed to various communities, the recruitment shows that Vokkaligas recruitment and other communities recruitment has increased tremendously, even though the Brahmins and the Muslims domination continued. But these backward class communities representation has increased over a period of time. So again, the issue of communal representation was taken up by the H.P. Gundappa, one of the Vokkaliga leaders in 1930, after referring to figures given by the government in 1930 regarding the gazetted officers distributions, which is given in the table 7. Just now I mentioned of the book, The Political Economy of Indirect Rule, Mysore, during 1881 to 1947. So Gundappa maintained that even after 8 to 10 years of the Miller report, there has been no appreciable improvement. So his argument was that Vokkaligas were about 14 lakh and had 10 appointments. Lingaites with population of 7 lakhs had 17 appointments. Brahmins and Muslims, on the other hand, with a population of 3 lakhs, had 45 and 32 appointments. So this has these data given by Gundappa and others, resulted in churning of the anti-caste movement in Karnataka, and also the equal representation was demanded by these backward communities. So we can now see that not only caste, but also the numerical strength of each caste was taken into account according to most of the prominent non-Brahmin leaders. When the numerical strength of each caste was taken into account, the idea of backward representation in public services had gone wrong. So this was the initiative taken by the Nalvadi Krishnaraja Wadiyar to provide the equal representation to backward classes in the recruitment as well as other public services. So in order to increase the recruitment, in order to provide more recruitment, so he has brought several reforms in the sectors of industry, education, and also infrastructure development. I would like to mention a few educational institutions which were established, and how the downtrodden and also the women they were given importance to the right to education. So he established educational institutions, many of which are renowned even today. In 1913, he introduced compulsory primary education. He was the first chancellor of the Banaras Hindu University and also Mysore University. The Mysore Medical College was started in 1924. Vani Vilasa Women and Children's Hospital was instituted in 1934. Maranis College for Women, exclusively for women, was established way back in 1938. And Indian Institute of Science, Tata Institute, in 1911 was established by providing 371 acres of land. So this has become a #1 Indian institute at the international level even today. So women rights to vote was given by the king Maharaja in Mysore much before women in America and other parts of the world were allowed to vote, were not allowed to vote. So apart from that, he wanted to alleviate the poverty by providing employment opportunities in various industries. So alleviating poverty and improving rural infrastructure were his main concerns. Public health, education, and the Mysore economy were received importance during his kingdom. The sandalwood oil factory was started in 1970. He established several industries, around 27 industries he has established. One prominent among them I am mentioning here. The Bhadravati Iron and Steel Factory was started in 1923. So apart from that, he has also constructed several dams and hydroelectricity generating units. So Mysore became the first state to produce hydroelectric power, not only in India, but in all Asia way back in 1902. So in this way, the Mysore king, the Nalvadi Krishnaraja Wadiyar, had given importance to education, industry, infrastructure development, and even he brought the education policy for the downtrodden, and women were given education. He has banned the child marriage. So in this way, overall development that took place during this period, even today, has helped the overall development of Karnataka in terms of industry, in terms of education, in terms of infrastructure, and that has served as the base or foundation for overall economic, social, and economic development of even downtrodden, especially in the region of Mysore kingdom. So I stop here, and I thank Professor Sukhadeo Thorat for giving me this opportunity to share some of my views on the contributions made by the Krishnaraja Wadiyar the Fourth.
Thank you so much, Professor Dr. Krishnaraj sir, for your wonderful presentation. It was very knowledgeable, insightful, and it enlightened us about the great work done by Maharaja Krishnaraja Wadiyar IV of Mysore. You have explained about the golden era of development, how he contributed towards the backward class reservation in education and public services. You talked about his contribution to the education, to the industry, to the infrastructure, and you have very well represented the data, the statistics, which shows us the then picture how the society he wanted to make through the data. So now may I request our chairperson, Professor Padamshree, Professor Dr. Sukhadeo Thorat sir, to please give your presidential address.
There is nothing like a presidential address. I am just coordinating, not even a coordinating, but informally and symbolically chairing the session. But I'll make a few comment, a very, very positive comment. Friends, you have listened to two very important, insightful lectures. And I am quite sure that many of the participants possibly got this information about Karnataka for the first time. We really try to bypass the progressive thoughts and progressive movement along with the time. In two different lectures, which are really interrelated on the issue of social justice, we have listened to the first lecture wherein Dr. Patan has highlighted the amazing contribution of Basveshwara. His attempt to build a casteless society valuing labor, and casteless society, class and classes society. You know, we only praise the thought that emerged outside, Fabian society, Fabian socialism, where labor was valued in terms of commodities and goods and services. Here is the man who would not pay anything without labor. But we have suppressed this new thought and modern thought. We have not built upon it. And the Brahmanical scholarship is responsible for that. You can see how progressive thoughts are of Bashveswara, and yet Bashveswara has been absorbed and assimilated into a very orthodox thoughts. And at times, the moment that he started look more orthodox than the modern. But that has been the strategy used by the Brahmanical scholarship to highlight the persons, but take away and ignore their content and teaching. I think, Pathan, you may like to comment later on. I just raised the question here. All that you say about his teaching look like to me Buddha. Don't do this, don't do this. It's all character building, basically. Buddha's focus was on charitra, character building, action, thought, but also action. Amazing person, I think we should, I would, in fact, Krishna Raj, I was really surprised that why is it that in ISEC we have not set up a chair on the name of Bashveswara. We have taken more recent thinker and chief ministers, but we should have a chair on him and as well as the king.
Yes, sir.
Done a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Maybe we will think about it.
Sure, sir.
And Krishna Raj has brought out a very, very unknown aspect of, at least I do not know. I knew only a couple of things of the Mysore king, he's assistant to Dr. Ambedkar. But now we can see that he's the founder of the reservation policy in Karnataka as back as 1918. Shahu Maharaj started reservation in 1902, and Mysore king started in 1918, and Sayaji Rao also during that period. These three figures are very outstanding OBC king. But Anti-Untouchability Act, reservation, education is a fantastic contribution. You require courage. I give you an incident. In fact, Dr. Patane, I think, casually possibly mentioned that the British also follow the caste system legally. 1772 Anglo-English bill recognized caste. So Dalit did not have access to education, as a matter of fact, except those who go into military, but others did not have. It is only in 1855 that they accepted that the education is open to the poor and the deprived. And in 1956, a boy from Dharwad went to get admission in the school, and he was refused the admission simply because by the school authorities, which was entirely dominated by the high caste. So he wrote a complaint. His father wrote a complaint to the head of the Bombay presidency, because Dharwad fall in Bombay presidency. And Bombay presidency also took a similar view in a way. They say that yes, education is open to all, that is our law and all that. But by giving admission to one untouchable student, if the school is closed, then this is not good. So they did not recommend the admission to that boy. We do not know what happened. And later on, now in Dharwad, we have a school in the same place where these incidents happen. The school was established by I don't know the establishment, but it is now a school which is predominantly dominated by the Dalit, and it is in the memory of that boy. Ramabai Ambedkar stayed in that hostel, and the school, she's supposed to have held them for food and other thing. Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar also went there. So I think this is the story of 1855. So couple of 2-3 decades, you have a king which takes such a progressive steps. It requires courage to take as a bold step against the high level of orthodoxy. Thank you very much, both of you. I think we have enough time for discussion, and there are people now. I can see there is a huge attendance. The number was 81. Now it has reduced to some number, but very high attendance. I think we will open the discussion now for answer and questions.
Yes. Now this forum open for question answers. Please raise your hand or write your question in chat box.
Yeah, or if there are questions on the chat, both the author can take it and answer them as and when they like.
So please, sir, please, Dr. Shashikant sir and Dr. Krishnaraj sir.
Yeah, there is one question to me by Mr. Holkar. I think he had mentioned that people who claim to be the followers of Basavanna appear to have not accepted his philosophy to caste system, classes, society. They still practice casteism. See, Basavanna, as I told, he was a rational. After every person, of a prophet or any great man, his followers may not follow fulfilling, but we cannot generally blame the people. The philosophy remains the same for the upliftment of the downtrodden people, and all the philosophy of Basavanna has been accepted. And there are many intercaste marriages are going on. So if one or two instances which are bitter, as Mr. Holkar has mentioned, may not be for everybody. The days have changed, and there is an open. Even I had seen yesterday, just last month only, we took the SC/ST girl to the Lingayat boy. He's in Marine. The people have changed their thoughts and they are coming up. But ideology, principles, and philosophy are very high. And he said it is a failure. It is not a failure. We, the people who follows the principles, may be failure. Philosophy cannot be failed. Thank you, sir.
There is a hand raised. Dr. B. Gopal.
Dr. B. Gopal, please unmute yourself. Dr. B. Gopal Singh, can you hear me? Dr. B. Gopal, sir.
You must unmute the mic.
Unmute, please.
Sir, yes, sir. Good evening. Thank you very much for such a wonderful presentation. Now, my question is, today in Karnataka, we have got a clash between the Lingaites and Veerashaiva. How they deviated and what will be the result?
Sir, it's a good question. In fact, I did not bring it much because it should not lead a confusion in the spectators. And Veerashaiva is a subsect of Hindu. As I told you, the Lingayat is a movement as a parallel to non-Vedic and against the Brahminical society. But Veerashaiva is a subsect of Shaivism, and they later, in the 15th century, they accepted the principles of Basava philosophy. They entered into the religion. Later, they made it as a commodity, and they want to have their own existence separate. If you see, they have got the crown, they have got all the thing which they are enjoying, but it is against the Basava principles and Basava philosophy. They are entirely different.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Pawan, please take question from chat box one by one.
Vidya, you take it. I think it's better.
Okay, sir. Yeah. Yes, some comments are here, sir. I think I would like to read. My sincere thanks to Dr. Sukhadeo Thorat sir for giving me an opportunity, from Dr. Shashikant Patton. And some question, it's highly informative speech by Dr. Patton sir on Sri Basaveshwara. Thank you. I think, yeah. Malika Arjun Bangi says, very enlightening delivered by Dr. Shashikant Patton. Many facts have been deliberated. His speech speak about his R&D in knowing ideas of Sri Basaveshwara. Thank you, sir. So many comments are here. I think, how does the Jangama oriented? Dr. B. Gopal Singh.
Actually, Jangama is not a caste or a sect of a people. Jangama is a mission, like lamas in Buddhist and Munis in Jains. Jangamas are the one, they are one who carries the mission of a philosophy. And it was during 15th century when Yadiyura Siddhalinga Yati, Shiva Yogi, took the principles of philosophy of Basavarna, went to village and gave this particular philosophy to the downtrodden people. So Jangama later in this today, as Dr. B. Gopal Singh sir has mentioned and other people have thought, they became a caste later on. It was not a caste. It is not a profession also. It is carrying a wisdom message to house and village to village. So thus in 15th century, the Jangama sect has come. Jangama is a creativity. Jangama is an environment. Jangama is a whole universe. So it cannot be a caste.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Hello, Professor Vimal Thorat, ma'am. Yeah, Akshay Gujar.
Sir, I would like to know about Akka Mahadevi. She was also a prominent personality in Lingayat.
Yes, sir. Akshay Gujar, very nice question. Akka Mahadevi is the first poet of Kannada literature, and she had it was an engaged for the marriage with Kaushika, was a Jain king, but she refuses to marry with him. She says, I don't want to get married with a person of this sort of provincially luxurious life. I want to serve to the mankind. So she refuses and she comes to Basava Kalyana and she stays for a couple of years. And she is such a wonderful, she had studied chromosomal studies. If she is telling the same water, same air, same land, but the banana is sweet, whereas the lemon is this one, it is a sour. How come this has happened? So divine power is what it is. Atma and Paramatma, it is with you. It is different opinion sects which they collect, and accordingly the outcome of the spiritual mystic experience will come. So she stayed she was hardly 19 years when she left Basava Kalyana. She is a symbol of self-respect. As a strong woman empowerment, I can tell. She did not marry. She said, my husband, like if you see contemporarily Meera in Hindi, this one, she said, Krishna is my husband. She didn't say. Later on, she said, Chandamallikarjuna, whom she was in search of, the purgative of a divine soul. She said, no, I myself is a Chandamallikarjuna. She herself became a god. She says, I don't want to be a Chandamallikarjuna. I don't want to have married a Chandamallikarjuna because I'm beyond the gender discrimination. Now I myself is, she says one of the vachanas that Mole Mudi, if the mame comes, the people are considering as a female. If the mustaches comes, they call as a, but the inner soul is neither a male, soul doesn't have any gender. So this is all, she has written around 434 vachanas. Actually, she is from Udutadi of Shivamogga district, a very prominent poet and writer, I can tell. Anything if you want, I can share it personally to your mailbox. Thank you.
Yeah, this is the question from Thangraj sir. Can you compare the Basava movement with the Dravidian movement in Tamil Nadu?
I'll answer for this. Ramaswamy Periyar, who was a prominent fight activist, or you can prominent person for a Dravidian movement. AIDMK, DMK, Chettiar, Justice Party movement, there are people. He says, though he's from Tamil Nadu, Dravidian, Ramaswamy Periyar, because in 1921, there was a non-Brahmin movement hosted by Siddhappa Kambli, where Shahu Maharaj, actually Shahu Maharaj, basically he's from Mudol of Karnataka only. He knew Kannada, he studied in Karnataka. He was adopted for the Kolhapur dynasty. And he was there, Chetti brothers had come, and all this Justice Party. There was a big, around 500, 600 people were there. Ramaswamy Periyar was also part of it. Ramaswamy Periyar says, for this movement, Basavarna is my God. He was an atheist actually. If I call anyone as a God, it is my Sum of a value is Basavarna. So I call Basavarna as my, because Ramaswamy Periyar belongs to the border of Karnataka. His mother tongue was Kannada. So he says it is inspiration for even Ramaswamy Periyar to have this movement. But you cannot compare a personality because in the 12th century and here 20th century. But he Basavarna inspired even Ramaswamy Periyar also.
Okay, thank you, sir. Question from Umesh. Jangamas are Lingayat missionaries?
Jangamas are actually, anybody can become Jangama. There's no caste reservations or any special privilege for the Jangamas. But very unfortunately, Lingayats have become again the same rituals. Most of the people, because there was a gap of 300 years after Basavarna, when massacre took place in most of the thousands of the people, Downtrodden peoples, their vachanas were burnt, they were killed. They were killed totally. And the people were scared to study this Vachana Sahitya. So then it was under the these mutts only, Swamijis. Later on, Yaduru Siddhalinga Yati had took this editing of the Vachanas, and later they came, and in 20th century, 1920th century, Dr. Fogu Alkatti took this task and job, reaching Vachanas to everyone. And till then, there was so many plagiarism took place, there was a misleading took place. So people are not aware because there is a 400, 500 years of gap after Vachanas, after Basavarna. So it did not reach to the, immediately it not come. It did not come, emerged as a religion also. And meanwhile, Veerashaiva people or Shaiva sects entered, the Brahminical culture entered, and they actually misled the movement led by Lord Basavarna. So Basava philosophy is totally rational, radical, with a casteless and classless society. It is aimed for that. Thank you.
Vidya?
Yes,
Vidya,
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I have not a question. Dr. Shashikant Patan has brought out the very core movement of the Nath Sampradaya, because it is Basveshwara is follow the Nath Sampradaya, and it is follow the Buddha principles. All the Siddha and Nath Parampara is followed Buddha's principle. And the most important thing you have brought it in your speech, that gender equality. Basavarna has given the space, the women, first time, like Buddha form Bhikkhuni Sangha and give the space for the women for preaching and acquire the knowledge. And you have mentioned, just now you have mentioned, what is her name?
Akkama Devi.
Yeah. And these two very important women poets, I really don't remember the name. The second one.
Akkama Devi, madam. Akkama Devi.
And
Akkanagama, Satyakta, Sule Sankave. Many are there. 36 women poets were there.
Yeah, but the important is Akkamahadevi and Muktayaka, right?
Exactly.
I have studied Akkamahadevi during my MA course, and it is really a wonderful thing she has brought out in her poetry. एक वचन है बसवेश्वर का, हम बसवेश्वर लिखते हैं क्योंकि हिंदी में बसवेश्वर, बसवन्ना वैसे ही known as a very popular name in कर्नाटका. वो कहते हैं, क्या अन्न का दाना देख कौवा अपने समूह को बुलाएगा नहीं, क्या एक निवाला देख मुर्गा अपने कुल को बुलाएगा नहीं, शिव भक्त बन भक्ति पक्ष का न रहा तो वह कौवे और मुर्गों से भी निकृष्ट है। कुंडल संगम देव। ये सभी he always take the name of Kundal Sangam Dev. He is offering that, offering
Kudala Sangamadeva, Basavana's actually.
Basveshwara. So I think this is a very important point you have brought in that casteless society, caste and classless society, and he also wanted to bring the social change in the society. So this is a very important contribution in the 12th century of by Basavanna. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much.
Vidya, I just want to
Okay, sir. Please.
ask Krishna Raj. Krishna Raj, the Untouchability Act is a very important steps on the part of the king. Do we have that legislation in written form? Because I have a feeling that which year it was, Untouchability Act?
Actually, he has used the Miller's committee report recommendations. And I have to read those acts, sir. Actually, I have not come across the year. But certainly I'll go through because I have not browsed all the literature so far.
Because I have a feeling the Bombay presidency passed the Civil Rights Act in 1922. That is to have an equal access to all the untouchables, former untouchables. And it is based on that 1922 Act in the Bombay Assembly, the Mahad Satyagraha, Mahad and Nashik Satyagraha for the entry into the temple and Mahad Satyagraha in entry into the tank, water tank, was started by Dr. Ambedkar. Maybe you can pull it out. It's a very important document. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Also the reservation policy, the written document and the policy that should be brought out, I think.
Yeah, sir. I will find out those two documents.
Yeah. Akshay Gujar, please.
I have a question for Professor Krishna Raj. So
Yes.
I was wondering that the almost work of King Krishnaraja was similar to Rajarshi Shahu Maharaj. So I wonder, did King Krishnaraja faced a discrimination by Orthodox as the Rajarshi Shahu Maharaj experienced discrimination in the Vedokta Prakaran? So as Sukhadeo also said that these were the OBC kings. So any such kind of experience Krishnaraja had in those times?
Actually, there was a strong opposition to the social reforms he wanted to bring to all his subjects. But especially even educated divans like Sarj M. Mirza Ismail, even Sir M. Visvesvaraya, they were opposing the equality of opportunities in the services and also the education, free education given to the downtrodden. So there was a current of opposition within the kingdom, and but the king was resolute in his decision because he has constituted a committee. That committee had given him a strong support or basis for implementation of all these social reforms. So he treated all the subjects as one, and is getting benefits out of all the subjects, and they are serving the nation, and he cannot discriminate them by giving more opportunities to the upper caste, especially the Brahmins and Muslims, and neglecting the contributions made by the downtrodden, including SC, ST, Panchamas. So therefore, even though there were oppositions at every level, So he brought the reforms that would help these communities, including for the first time in the history of India, he had given rights to vote by the women. And second thing, he has banned the child marriage among the women. And he established a separate colleges and schools for women and therefore empowerment. Marnis College, even today, they are very popular colleges and universities. They have become unitary universities. Further, that a separate schools when the Muslims they don't want to, some of the Brahmins community, they don't want to sit with the Panchama students, children in the schools. So he established a separate school for these children. Apart from that, as other kings, they have given a fellowship to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. He has introduced the scholarship fellowship program. And the education investment and the expenditure was enormous during that time. So he had imparted highest importance to education to the downtrodden. Through such opportunities, he was thinking to provide more employment opportunities in the industry established by him, public sector industries. So this is how he has brought a excellent reform, a social reform, which was not thought by any other than any others except the Basavanna in 12th century. So I found this king was had a modern approach for economic development and equitable development for all the communities and the sectors, and even he brought the scientific fervor in his decision and in his thinking. So that is the it is great contributions. As Professor Thorat mentioned, so he was not adequately remembered and adequately researched for his contribution to the overall economic development of Karnataka. But I was thinking to do research on this topic, but Professor Thorat had given me opportunity. Now I'll take it forward and I'll find out. This is a beginning. I will take it forward, and we are even when Professor comes to ISEC, we will think over to establish a chair in the name of both Basavanna as well as Nalvadi Krishnaraja Wadiyar. We'll seriously give a thought about it.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Rudramani.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, all. So I just shared two links, important links of Mysore Gazetteer. It's way back 1897 to 1927. So the professor can access these things.
Yeah,
so
I already
for further
downloaded those things.
Yes. That Sanjay Foundation has given a wonderful opportunity to read all these things. Professor Om Prakash. So yes, sir. Thank you for giving. You can go through these links.
Yes,
The participants.
Yes, sir. Dr. Sukhadeo Thorat, sir, please ask.
Yeah, Krishna Raj, in introspect, I think this king period is about 13th century, isn't it? 13th, 14th century.
No, sir. By
19th century, 1920th century.
19th century, he was there up to 1940s.
1940s, but his predecessor were in
From 15th century. Sir.
15th century, the Wadiyar kingdom was started way back in 1399.
Yeah.
So
I think he's a contemporary of Shahu Maharaj and the Sayajirao.
Yes, sir. Shahu Maharaj, exactly.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention one point to Dr. Patan. I think Vimal Thorat has mentioned that point. The Basveshwara is 13th century, isn't it?
12th century. Sir.
12th century, 11 something. But you have the Namdev in 13th century in Maharashtra.
Namdev was a follower of Basavanna only, sir.
So that is what I wanted to ask you. I think the Namdev is influenced by Basveshwara then.
Yes, sir. He was influenced. He was from Basava Kalyan only.
Oh, I see. Could you elaborate on this?
Yes, sir. I can tell. Namdev belongs to OBC he is highly influenced by Basavanna, and he is a total follower of Lord Basavanna. Not only him, I can tell one more name. If you can see Pandharpur, what these people have done in the 15th century, there was a clash between this Bahumanis and Vijayanagara Empire.
Yeah.
So only Vaishnava temples were demolished. Ugra Narsimha, Vijayavittal Mandira, Hajare Ram temple, whereas Shaivite temple was not demolished because this was a political game played by the Shaivites and Veera Shaivites to demolish the Vaishnava temples. The Pandharpur, the what today Ekadashi is there, the Vittala is from Karnataka, from Vijayanagara, from Vijayavittal Mandira. It has been brought and put over there. And it is Vishobha Kesar. He is a 16th century, the missionaries of Basavan again. He went to Aunda Nagnath and put his feet on the linga, that Stavar linga, and he was sleeping. He was such an atheist. And these people, actually, Namadeva was a follower of Basavarna, and this Vishobha Kesar was also following that sort of practices. Because Maharashtra, there are many Sharanas. Siddharama from Solapur, Kandahara, Nanded, we have Urlinga Peddi. Around many Vachanakaras, our poets, our writers, are participated in the Sharana movement during 12th century, sir. So Vithoba, what they did on the Shaiva Mandir in the Pandharpur, Purandara, they have brought and installed Pandharpur, Vittala. It is Vishobha Kesar. It is a Samadhi of Vishobha Kesar of 15th century, 16th century, and they had installed it on that to mask the Shaivik or Sharana cultures.
And who was Vishobha Kesar?
Vishobha Kesar was a rational follower. He was a radical, sir. He was the atheist. Vishobha Kesar. These people, Vittala, actually, the name is Vittala. Kannada Vithoba. They call it as the Kannada Vithoba. Vittala is from Karnataka. Maza Mahira Pandari. Kannada Vithoba, he is from Karnataka, they say.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And he is not from Maharashtra. He is from Karnataka. The Vittala is from Karnataka. Vittala is Karnataka, but they made it as Vithoba because to mask the name of Vishobha Kesar. Vishobha Kesar was radical and rational. His anti-caste, his Samadhi is there in the Pandharpur. They want to mask the revolutionary acts of Vishobha, and they put the installations of Vittal and called him as Vithoba.
Yeah, to suppress his progressive
Exactly.
Yeah.
So suppress the contribution of Vishobha Kesar.
Okay.
And Namdev was also belongs to that sort of category only. He was a rational and radical son. And these Brahminical cultures killed Tukaram, threw the dead body in the Indrayani and told that Vishnu came and took his body.
Yeah.
So
But
this
that tradition of violence where the Tukarama's literature was, destroyed and thrown into the river,
Yes,
that also happened with respect to Basveshwara.
you
have said that a lot of literature was destroyed.
They are burnt, sir. Around 160 crores of vachanas were there because 700 people were there and 256 people poets were there. We hardly got 14,000 vachanas, 14,000 small vachanas of 8 lines, 10 lines. So Brahminical culture could not tolerate this sort of intercaste marriage, this sort of drastic changes in the social deformations. They could not digest it. So they killed, massacred people and they burnt it. Thousands of the Sharanas died, sir. That is the last, you can call, weapon for the people who want to suppress the vice.
Yeah, violence is the one of the major instruments which is used. Yeah, I think there are theories that Namdeva also sort of left Maharashtra.
Yes, sir.
With a fear that he might also be attacked. So he left to Punjab. Yeah,
he went to Punjab, and his so many vachanas are included in
Guru Granth Sahib.
Yes, Guru Granth Sahib in 16th century. Barabar. Namdev's,
yeah,
yes.
the 35 vachanas are there in Guru Granth Sahib. So he learned Punjabi also. He knows Hindi and as well Marathi and Kannada.
Yes, sir. But he was from originally Basava Kalyana, where the administrative center of Basavana. Namdev.
Thank you, sir.
You want to hello?
Yes, sir. KB Mahendra.
Yeah, Mahadevappa.
Mahadevappa, please, sir.
I want to ask one question to Mr. Patan. The Vachana literature, the position and the in Kannada literature, what is the position of Vachana literature? And also, the end of Basaveshwar, there is mystery about Basaveshwar, end of Basaveshwar. Please enlighten on these things.
Very good. So Vachanas are the Basavanna and his contemporaries, around 256 Vachanakars are the poets were there. Around 15,000 Vachanas have been found. And his end is mystery. There are two things which I want to tell. There are two researches have been worked on it. One says that he was killed by a Brahminical society only, and through the same thing what they did with Tukaram. The other one, he had to meet his wife, Neelambike, who was in the other bank side of the bank. While going, he could not swim because there was a big flow of a water storm. So he could not survive, and he was fetched away from the along with the water. Vachana Sahitya today, whole world is seriously studying. Like today, we should be grateful to Professor Sukhadeo sir saying that he is going to make a chair for Basavanna as well as Krishnaraja Wadiyar. So we will be grateful to you and we will support in every aspect, sir. Giving literature, books. Since I stay in Pune, whenever you call, Sukhadeo sir, I will be happy to be associated with you and give you the literature. And the Basava International Understanding is also doing the same thing. We can have a collaborative work and we can have a memorandum of understanding. And Madhyapa sir's Vachana Sahitya, even Kuvempu, all greater poets of Karnataka says that Basavanna is a pathway, because till 10th century, the literature was kept only for the upper class people. No one had a right to, they should not have right to write and read and write. Basavanna open for everyone, even cobbler, even a washerman, the dhobi, everyone had a participation in the Vachana Sahitya and Anubhava Mantapa. And that is the freedom of speech and the freedom of writing. And everybody became the laureate and poets and writers during that time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Professor Thangraj, sir.
Yeah. My question is to both the speakers. What has been happening to the legacy left out by both the revolutionaries, namely Basavanna and Krishnaraja Wadiyar? Now, is there any movement, political movement or non-political movement, to carry forward their ideas? For example, if you take Tamil Nadu, Periyar started a movement called Dravida Kazhagam. The party still exists. Someone is taking that party and try to impose his policies to the government. That's one. Now the present DMK government is saying that it is trying to implement some of the Periyar's policies in the government policies. Unless you have this kind of movement, the policies are written on papers and may remain only in paper. That way, I would like to reflect on this.
I'll answer, Thangraj, sir. As you said, it is a good observation from you. If you see the scenario of Buddhism, because Buddhism was before Krishna, 500 years before, and later in 12th century Basavanna comes, the gap between Buddha and Basavanna, I can call Basavanna as a Paripurna Buddha. It is a dream of Buddha fulfilled during 12th century. How come the Buddhist religion could go to Western countries, or it has remained in Singapore, Australia, Thailand, Japan, China, but why here not? Because again the violence from the same Brahminical culture, and they have demolished all the Buddhist monuments. They have killed. They picturize only the Kashmir files and other things, but they never mention about the massacre of Buddhists in 10th century. Buddhist religion was literally driven away from India to other countries. And they did the same thing with Jainism. Jainism, it could not grow. it could only follow the Vedic culture, and they remained as a part of a Hindu only. They are practicing all the Hindu practices. And Sikh religion was regionalized for Haryana, Punjab, and Delhi. Whereas Lingayat, if you see, Maharashtra, if you can see, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Kerala, Puducherry, part of Gujarat and Orissa. So here it has been developing. It's more than 6 crores of the people. As your question says, there is a non-political movement, I can tell. There is that our demand is there should be a constitutional recognition for Lingayat religion founded by Basavanna. The second is they should get the minority status. Our movement is there from last 5 years. And one effect I can tell, it is a C.P. Brown in the 1840, he has written a book on Basavanna, the caste system, caste, creed, and color, and eradications of this by Basavanna. The concepts of Jangama was written by C.P. Brown. It is I can tell 1840 he has written, around 260, 70 years before it was written. And the movement is on, and like-minded people like Buddha, Basavanna, Bapu, and Bhimrao, we call these 4B. And the political party starts with B, is an enemy who want to suppress the voice of all these 4 people who made the global scenario, who gave the Indian heritage to the rest of the world, like Buddha, Basavanna, Basaveshwara, or you can call Bapu, Mahatma Gandhiji, and Baba Saheb Ambedkar, Baba Saheb or Bhimrao. So these people, the voice has been, there's a division amongst ourselves. They make political use, they'll use, it will be political if I can tell. They use ED, IT, raid, many things they will do in order to suppress the movement. But Lingayat movement is on, and we are doing it. And regarding Krishnaraja Wadiyar, it has become a dynasty now. Their family province do not have that sort of a rational thinking. That vision is not there. I think Krishnaraja sir will enlighten on that. But as far as my study is concerned, Krishnaraja Wadiyar, and there was a comparison between Shahu Maharaj and Krishnaraja Wadiyar. They are contemporaries. They had same thoughts. But Shahu Maharaj suffered a lot. There was 117 cases put on Shahu Maharaj, till even Tanjavur also. Various cases was put on Shahu Maharaj. So this is what I can tell. But Krishnaraja Wadiyar, as he should have to be popularized his ideologies, but that's what it is. Since it has become a dynasty, they are protecting their property and wealth. They do not have that vision, that eyesight is not there, and we cannot get one more Krishnaraja Wadiyar from Wadiyar family or from that dynasty. This is my personal observations, and Krishna sir can definitely enlighten or put more
Thank
ideas.
you, Dr. Shashikant Patan sir, for adding some points to the questions raised by Tangraja. Actually, it is a very good question by Tangraja. What is the social or other movement that are taking place on the basis of legacies left by these two, Basavanna as well as Krishnaraja Wadiyar IV. So yes, Dr. Patan has mentioned, the princely family, kingdom family, so they are not politically active, but they are interested, as Shashikant mentioned, protecting their own assets in everywhere, in Bangalore and also Mysore. So they are not politically involved, except the Srikantadatta Narasimharaja Wadiyar. He was briefly involved with some politics. So, but there are two important social movements that tried to gather the mobilize the socially backward classes. One was led by the former Chief Minister Devaraja Ras. So he was prominent in mobilizing the backward classes based on the ideology given by the Wadiyar, Nalvadi Krishnaraja Wadiyar. So he was successful. He was even against the Indira Gandhi, and he was successful in mobilizing the backward classes, and he ruled the state. And even he changed the name of the state from Mysore state to Karnataka state. So his clout is continuing among other leaders, especially the presently the Sidramaya, the former chief minister, who also leads the movement called Ahinda. Ahinda means the backward class, the minorities and Dalits. So he also captured the power once in Karnataka. So that movement is still alive in Karnataka. The another movement, even though it is not politically strong movement, was the Dalit movement. So Dalit movement was successful in enlightening the people about their rights, their opportunities, and their deprivation even today. So even I worked for the expert committee where the reservation in promotion was withdrawn by the Supreme Court, where we have to prove the compelling reasons such as backwardness, economic backwardness, and in unequal representation in the positions, as well as the overall efficiency in administration. So we are asked to prove again with data and other things. We have proved and we have successfully won the case in Supreme Court. As a result, the reservation in promotion is restored. So likewise, there are movements in Karnataka, but because of dilution of ideology in recent years, and the caste has become more prominent than the ideology nowadays. So under this regime, so as a result, there is a strong movement which is required to mobilize the backward communities, especially downtrodden, to get the political power in the at the state as well as central level. So consolidation is completely weak in Karnataka, but there are efforts which are being made to mobilize such a movement. I stop here. Thank you.
Sir, if we can add two names. One is B. Basavalingappa and LG Hanur, who again, they Basavalingappa Anti-Scavenger Act, because it was a very big in Karnataka. It is first time in Karnataka, first time in India, the Anti-Scavengers Act was brought by B. Basavalingappa. And one more, LG Hanur, who gave the strong reservation policies for OBCs. And it is a need of time that we should all join our hands. As you have said, ideology has to come front and the caste system has to go. So we should see whoever has there, like Sidramaya has done a good, tremendous work for after, I think it is Sidramaya who fulfilled what we call as the social justice or all those things Sidramaya has done. Such leaders are still required, but very unfortunately, the party of Vedic cultures are attracting by money, by muscles. Some our own people, like the Dalits people, are getting transferred. You have seen recently, Chalwadi has become, for the sake of post and power, they forget. Many of the Dalits, many of the, I can call the minority people are with those parties. It is very unfortunate, I can tell, sir.
Yes, I agree with you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. No questions now.
Which year this Scavenging Act was enacted?
Sir, it was in 1970, sir.
Oh, much earlier to the 1990 All India Act.
No, it was first during that time only. Anti-Scavengers Act was by B. Basavalingappa fought, sir. It was it is the first in India, sir. First time in India.
Okay. Vidya, please go on.
Okay, sir. I think we should stop here due to time limit of Zoom meeting. So thank you both of the honorable guest speaker. Today's webinar is very valuable for us. You both of you present here a very informative and intellectual presentation on the behalf of the association. I am very thankful to you, sir. And for the next procedure, Pavan Khadse, please, over to you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, may I request my friend Swapnil to please present vote of thanks. Swapnil.
Yes, Pawan. Yeah. Thank you. Very good evening to all. Jai Bhim
Swapnil,
to one
please
and
on
all.
your video. If you are possible.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Jai Bhim to one and all. I'm Swapnil Zogrande, currently pursuing a master's in social work from Tata Institute of Social Science, Mumbai. I'm going to present the vote of thanks. So I hope you all have enjoyed the session organized by the Association for Social and Economic Equality webinar on the both topics. I would like to take this opportunity to thank respected chief guest of this session, Padamshree Professor Sukhadeo Thorat sir, former chairperson of UGC and ICSSR New Delhi and the president of ASEE, Association for Social and Economic Equality. On the behalf of all the members, I express my gratitude to him. Thank you very much, sir, for your presence and guidance and expressing your valuable comments here. And today's guest speaker, Honorable Dr. Shashikant Patan, sir, President of Basav Understanding Research Center, Pune. His talk on topic Basavanna and advocate for the true democracy and human rights. So he taught us from the Basavanna's family background to the important incident of Basavanna's life, like the Upanayana function, how he developed his critical and rational thinking over the years, how he developed questions, the harsh question on orthodox practices, rituals, and inequality for the women and downtrodden section of the society. How he established Lingayat movement, non-Vedic and the first ever non-Brahmin cultural movement. How he started advocating for the equality for all downtrodden and marginalized classes through the freedom of practice of religion by eliminating the Varna system. It really helped common people at that time. It gained a kind of confidence to fight against the oppressive Brahminical system. Sir beautifully explained about the literary movement, like the sir recited some of the vachanas, and yeah. So yeah, that's what I heard from the in short. So thank you so much, sir, for the satisfactory and insightful answers to all the questions raised by the participants. Yeah, and about the another guest speaker of the webinar, Professor Dr. Krishna sir, Center for the Economic Studies and Policy, and then for the Institute for Social and Economical Change, Bangalore. His insightful talk on the topic Krishnaraja Wadiyar, fourth of Mysore Princely State and architect of social and economic development of Downtrodden. He very beautifully explained us from the rise of Mysore Princely State before the establishment of Karnataka as a state. Sir explained us the important aspects of Mysore Kingdom as they highly contributed for the social and economic development of marginalized communities in the princely state. As Maharaja had taken education from the Western scholars, he developed modern progressive perspective, which helped him to make properly govern and administration and make the wholesome development of society. He was the first king who banned child marriages and made strict laws for the practicing untouchability. He was so supportive for the anti-caste movement. He eventually expressed it in the reply of Praja Mitra Mandali to work for the upliftment of all the section of society, as well as he established a committee under Sir Leslie Miller for the equal representation of marginalized communities in the government services. As Sir said, the Maharaja of Mysore focused on the education of backward classes by providing them the scholarships by making it mandatory in the princely state. It shows the dedication and genuine efforts of the Maharaja Wadiyar for the upliftment of the oppressed communities in his princely state. He was a visionary who dreamed and worked for the egalitarian society as he worked extensively for the public health, education, infrastructure, economy, etc. He was the first king who had given the right of votes for the women. Yes, sir. And thank you so much, sir, for the wonderful session. And on the behalf of association, I thank you so much for the Dr. Shashikant Rudopapattan and Dr. Krishna Raj for your insightful, informative, wonderful talks. I also express my gratitude to Professor Vimal Thorat ma'am and Professor Vidya Chourpagar ma'am and all the respected staff. I would like to thank all the participants, members for their presence and enthusiastic participation for the questions and make this session more engaging. Thank you each and every member for their cooperation and making this session wonderful. Thank you all. Jai Bhim.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.